Hello viewers, this is Paladin of Odin, and this is some more Magic the Gathering Online. This is another episode of the Standard Commentary Series, and it looks like we've got Jeskai versus Boros. And so far, Jeskai has done a really good job of heading Boros off at the pass, killing off his creatures before they can really do anything. And if he can keep doing that, he'll be in an incredibly good position because he has a massive card advantage at this point. Unfortunately, this turn, instead of just one Bomat Courier and a Smuggler's Copter, well, I think it was two Bomat Couriers. Now he's got the Inventor's Apprentice, Bomat Courier, Smuggler's Copter, Bonesaw. Well, he's got another Harness Lightning, so he can kill off the Smuggler's Copter, which is honestly the biggest threat. 3 damage, flying, lets them draw cards, versus these other guys, yeah. But back to Bonesaw, honestly, I would scrap this from any deck. I would never run this card. It is just not worth it, unless we're talking about the Aetherflux Reservoir deck where you need cards that are free so that you can play them and bounce them and play them and bounce them and so on and so forth. In a deck like this, honestly, that card slot could have been put to much better use. There are tons of white and red cards that are good enough to see standard play, and Bonesaw is a waste of a slot in my opinion. So, Anticipate goes back to Boros. And at the moment, Boros does have a wide open field to attack in with. It's not a whole lot of damage, but, 5 damage is still quite a bit. And more importantly, at this point, he's got the mana open so that he can use it to sacrifice Bomat Courier at any point and get a card advantage off of it. Because it looks like he's got nothing else to play. But at the moment, it doesn't really seem like there's any reason to sacrifice the Bomat Courier because he's 2 power on the board. His opponent's at 9. He's got 5 power at the moment. 2 more swings, and he wins. And going all in again. He did sacrifice that clue token and got an extra card. He hasn't played anything, so either it's not what he needs right now, or it's a trick, and he's hoping to capitalize. Glimmer of Genius in response, scry 2, draw 2, and then get 2 energy. That's really not helpful at the moment. Well, unless it got him a Galvanic Bombardment. He could have had that in his hand already, but who knows. And Bombardment is going for the Bomat Courier, since it's, 2 damage only at this point. And now Boros has to decide. And he decides to pop the Courier. Courier and... So it was a Bomat Courier and Outnumber in his hand. Outnumber deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. So he could have thrown out the other Bomat Courier, but the Outnumber was completely useless. And he got another Bonesaw. But in this rare instance, Bonesaw is actually not that bad. I mean, it is still a garbage card. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it just because in this situation it helps. But in all of Magic, Bonesaw is garbage. But in this particular instance, because his opponent has no board presence at all, the only creature that he could possibly man up at the moment would be the Wandering Fumarole, unless he plays one. Oh, he kept 3 mana open. That's interesting. I'm wondering what he has in his hand. Okay, Fumigate from Jeskai. You know, it's at this point, it doesn't matter whether he had one car or one creature or 10. He really needed to clear that board because it wouldn't have been too hard for him to add one more damage. And there was the Fiery Temper. That would have been lethal if he hadn't Fumigated. But luckily for him, he had Fumigate, which cleared the board, gained him 2 life, put him up to 8. Fiery Temper took him down to 5. And Boros throws down Town Gossipmonger and puts one of the bone saws on him. And now Jeskai has to be worried about the fact that theoretically he could attack in here. If he doesn't do anything about the creature, he could have another Fiery Temper in his hand or something similar. Okay, putting the other bone saw on, turning him into a 3/1. Now, he does have the mana to mana up the Wandering Fumarole and block. And as a 1/4, it would be enough to block and kill the Town Gossipmonger and still be alive, unless Boros has a burn spell. Or he can just Flash Hulk. And goes for Glimmer of Genius, because at this point he really does need more cards. You know, he needs answers, and he needs them badly. But, you know, Gear Hulk is a very good blocker for him. It's a 5/6 versus this 3/1. You know, a 5/6 is going to be harder to kill than a 1/4. But at the same time, 3 power, Fiery Temper, Gear Hulk is going to die. But at least Gear Hulk tanked that Fiery Temper. You know, Fiery Temper to the face would have taken him down to 2. 2 damage is really not hard to do. So, okay, Nahiri the Harbinger. Well, that'll be extra cards for him. Unfortunately, he's, you know, very low on mana at the moment. Summary Dismissal. I'm really not a fan of this card either. I mean, I do like the ability, you know, counter all abilities. So, say your opponent threw down a Torrential Gear Hulk, you could fire this off and counter it. You know, it's a very rare thing to be able to do. Okay, manning up Needle Spires, equipping Bone Saw. This is lethal. He does not have the mana to man up Wandering Fumarole. He has to have an answer in hand or he is dead. And something like, I was just about to say, Galvanic Bombardment, 1 mana, good enough because Needle Spires is only 1 toughness. Now, he did have 1 Galvanic Bombardment in his graveyard, so Needle Spires could have had 3 toughness, and it wouldn't have mattered. It still would have died. Dynavolt Tower. Man, we're just running into a lot of cards that I'm not a fan of. But in this particular instance, the tower might actually be very helpful for him because, you know, a lightning bolt is pretty hard to live through when you're running weenies. So this thing could very well be what keeps him alive. And Nahiri is just going to keep letting him draw cards, discard cards he doesn't need, like more land. You know, Aether Hub could have given another energy, but not that big a deal. You know, at this point, it just all comes down to top decks. Unfortunately for Boros, his options are incredibly limited because, you know, even if he gets a creature with haste, you know, a 3 damage is most likely going to kill it because he hasn't been using his energy. He's saving it, and for that reason. Nahiri grabs Torrential Gear Hulk. He uses it on Anticipate. And I get the feeling that Boros has lost this game. I don't really see a way... Yeah, he concedes. I was going to say, I don't really see a way that he can overcome the Lightning Bolt on the board, plus 6 cards in his hand with all that mana open, and be able to take him down fast, in a single turn, with as few cards as he had. Well, unfortunately for Boros, Jeskai managed to hang in there just long enough. He got the answers he needed. That Fumigate was key to his survival. Because you saw him, he had Fiery Temper, he was waiting to use Fiery Temper after his combat damage, and, he almost had that game in the bag. And unfortunately, Jeskai lived just one turn too long. He managed to survive one more turn than Boros could handle. And that's all it took. And all of a sudden, Jeskai turned the whole game around. Now, also, I'm sorry I went on babbling about cards that I don't like in Standard. I can understand if people like them or even run them, but those are just my opinions. I don't really see them being worth a slot in a deck. When you are putting yourself at 60 cards, because, theoretically you could run more than 60 cards, but nobody does because, it's just what everybody does. You're cutting a percentage off of your deck by running or at least to me, you're cutting a percentage off your deck by running cards that honestly I don't think are worth it. But again, I just went off rambling about cards that I don't like. I'm going to end the video here. That was Jeskai, I'll call it Control. Jeskai Control versus Boros Aggro. And if you liked what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button for me, and I will see you in the next video.